Despite his petty jealousies, Elrude couldn't claim Shando had been adulterous, not by any legal standard. But Dominic Vernius knew her intimate nickname for him. What else had Shando told her husband? It ate at him like a porcine fester. On the screen of a wrist-strap security monitor, he watched Dominic at the main gate, as pale security beams washed over him. From a scanner that was another sophisticated Ixian machine. He could send a signal, and the probes would obliterate the other man's mind, leave him a vegetable. An unexpected power surge, a most terrible accident. How ironic if Elrude were to use an Ixian scanner to kill the Earl of Ix. Oh, how he wanted to do it. But not now. The time wasn't right, and there could be embarrassing questions, maybe even an investigation. Such vengeance required subtlety and planning. In that way, the surprise and ultimate victory would be so much more satisfying. Elrude switched off the monitor, and the screen darkened. Standing beside the blocky throne, Chamberlain Aiken Hesban didn't ask why his emperor was smiling. The highest function of ecology is the understanding of consequences. Parted Kynes. Ecology of Bella Tajus. Initial report to the Imperium. Over a razor-edged horizon, the shimmering atmosphere was filled with pastel colors of sunrise. In a brief instant, the clean stillness of Arrakis allowed warm light to flood over the wrinkled landscape. A sudden deluge of brightness and rising heat. The white sun lurched above the horizon, without much precursor glow in the arid air. Now that he had finally arrived on the desert world, Parted Kynes drew a deep breath, then remembered to put the face mask over his nose and mouth to prevent extreme moisture loss. His sparse, sandy hair blew in a light breeze. He had only been on Arrakis 4 days, and already he sensed that this barren place held more mysteries than a lifetime could ever unravel. He would have preferred to have been left to his own devices. He wanted to wander alone across the great bled with his instruments and logbooks, studying the character of lava rock and the stratified layers of dunes. However, when Glossu Rabban, nephew of the Baron and heir apparent to House Harkonnen, announced his intention to go into the deep desert to hunt one of the legendary sandworms, such an opportunity was too great for Kynes to ignore. As a mere planetologist in the entourage, a scientist instead of a warrior, he felt like the odd man out. Harkonnen desert troops brought along weaponry and explosives from the armored central keep. They took a troop transport led by a man named Thekar, who claimed to have once lived in a desert village, though he was now a water merchant in Carthage. He had more of a freeman look to him than he admitted, though none of the Harkonnen seemed to notice. Rabban had no specific plan for tracking one of the huge, sinuous beasts. He didn't want to go to a spice harvesting site where his crew might disrupt the work. He wanted to hunt down and kill such a beast by himself. He just brought along all the weaponry he could imagine and relied upon his instinctive talent for destruction. Days earlier, Kynes had arrived on Arrakis by diplomatic shuttle, landing in the dirty, though relatively new city. Eager to get started, he had presented his imperial assignment papers to the Baron himself. The lean, red-haired man had scrutinized Kynes' orders carefully, then verified the imperial seal. He pursed his thick lips before he grudgingly promised his cooperation. So long as you know enough to stay out of the way of real work. Kynes had bowed. I like nothing better than to be alone and out of the way, my Lord Baron. He'd spent his first 2 days in the city purchasing desert gear. talking to people from the outlying villages, learning what he could about the legends of the desert, the warnings, the customs, the mysteries to explore. Understanding the importance of such things, Kynes spent a substantial sum to obtain the best still suit he could find for desert survival, as well as a paracompass, water distilleries, and reliable note-keeping devices. It was said that many tribes of the enigmatic freemen lived in the trackless wastes. Kynes wanted to talk with them, to understand how they squeezed survival from such a harsh environment. But the out-of-place freemen seemed reticent within the boundaries of Carthage, and they hurried away whenever he tried to talk with them. Kynes didn't much care for the city himself. House Harkonnen had erected the new headquarters en masse when, 4 decades earlier, guild manipulations had given them Arrakis as a quasi-fief to govern. Carthage had been built with the rapidity of inexhaustible human labor, without finesse or attention to detail. Blocky buildings constructed of substandard materials for ostentatious purposes or functionality. No elegance whatsoever. Carthage did not appear to belong here. Its architecture and placement were offensive to his sensibilities. Kynes had an innate ability to see how the fabric of an ecosystem meshed, how the pieces fit together in a natural world. But this population center was wrong, like a pustule on the skin of the planet. Another outpost to the southwest, Arrakeen, was a more primitive city that had grown slowly, naturally, nestled against a mountainous barrier called the Shield Wall. Perhaps Kynes should have gone there first, but political requirements had forced him to establish his base with the rulers of the planet. At least that had given him the opportunity to search for one of the giant sandworms. The large Thopter transport carrying Rabban's hunting party lifted off, and soon Kynes received his initial glimpse of the true desert. Kynes peered out the window plaza at the rippled wastelands below. From experiences in other desert regions, he was able to identify dune patterns, shapes, and sinuous curves that revealed much about seasonal wind patterns, prevailing air currents, and the severity of storms. So much could be learned from studying these ripples and lines, the fingerprints of weather. He pressed his face to the plaza observation ports. None of the other passengers appeared to be interested at all. The Harkonnen troops fidgeted, hot in their heavy blue uniforms and armor. Their weapons clattered against each other and
I think that's my biggest problem.
The men seemed uneasy without their personal body shields, but the presence of a shield and its Holtzman field would drive any nearby worms into a killing frenzy.
I really do believe that.
Rabban himself wanted to do the killing. Glossu Rabban,
That
the
iPhone
21-year-old
devices,
son of the planet's
and
former
they
lackluster governor,
were
sat up front
number
near
one.
the pilot, looking for targets out on the sand. With severely cropped brown hair, he was broad-shouldered, deep-voiced,
No, top 3.
and short-tempered.
You're in top 2, you're good.
Icy pale blue eyes
Oh, you're
looked
not
out
actually
from a
good.
sunburned face. He seemed to do
If you have
everything
to call
possible
into
to be the
fucking
opposite of his
Apple,
father.
call into me.
Where we see worm tracks from the sky? He asked.
Yeah, seriously, you
Behind him,
don't know how you're
Bakar, the
fucking
desert
working
guide,
the
leaned very close, as if
I
wishing to
want
remain
to
within
open the
Rabban's
by the
personal
way,
space.
and I can.
The sand
I know
shifted
more
and
about
masked
apples
the
than
passage
you.
of a worm. Often they travel deep. You will
That's
not
fine.
see a worm moving until it approaches the surface and is ready to attack. The tall, angular Kynes listened intently, taking mental notes. He wanted to record all of these details in his logbook, but that would have to wait until later. Then how are we going to find one? I heard the open
I'll give you a word of advice. Don't do Bumble, don't do Tinder, don't do Kazoo, don't do any of those.
Some extending to hundreds of square kilometers. Within these boundaries, they hunt.
If you're already hurting, stop. Stop.
Growing impatient,
You can call in if you want to.
his skin grew dark.
You don't have to message me all the
How do
time.
we know where to find a worm's domain? Sekar smiled, and his dark, close-set eyes took on a distant look.
I don't know how to capture the messages. I don't know how to. No, I don't know how to say that.
Stop evading my
I don't know how to save it.
Within another moment,
It's live show. It's on the internet. I don't know.
You have been on Arrakis for so long, and you did not know this, my Lord Rabban? The Freemen consider the great sandworms to be gods.
I really do not know what you're talking about.
They name him collectively Shai-Hulud. Then today we shall
So we
kill
have.
God, Rabban announced in a loud voice, causing
We
the
have
others in the back
gymnastics
of the compartment to
for.
cheer. He turned sharply toward the desert guide. I depart for Gidi Prime in 2 days and must have a trophy to take back with me. This hunt will be successful.
Probably should not have done this tonight.
Ancestral homeworld of House Harkonnen.
Well, a lot of dead air is what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. I don't have a lot of dead air on the regular issue. I can talk to anybody.
In a more ominous tone.
You have
Seated alone
to.
in the rear of the troop transport, covered in his desert gear, Hines felt uncomfortable in such company. He had no interest in the glorious ambitions of the Baron's nephew. But if this excursion gave him a good look at one of the monsters,
So I'm
it would be
getting.
worth months of intensive effort on his own. Rabban stared out through the front of the transport.
Wouldn't be
His
so
hard,
bad
squinting
for the
eyes were
6-year-old
surrounded
woman.
by thick folds of skin. He scrutinized the desert as if it were a delicacy he intended to eat, seeing
I
none of the
can't
beauty
eat.
Hines noted in the landscape. I have a plan, and this is how we'll follow it.
I can't eat my food.
Rabban turned to the troops and
Gosh,
opened the
I had
system
to
to the
say.
spotter ornithopters flying in
This is
formation
my
around the
camera.
transport. They cruised out over the expanse of open sand. The June ripples below looked like wrinkles on an old man's skin. That outcropping of rock down there, he gestured and read off the coordinates, will be our base. About 300 meters from the rock, we'll touch down in the
Well, I
open
have to
sand,
wake up.
where we'll
If
drop
I
the
wake
car
up,
with a gadget he calls a thumper. Then we'll lift off to the safety of the rock outcroppings, where the worm can't go. The lean desert man looked up in alarm.
Yeah.
Leave me out there? But my lord, I'm not... You gave me the idea.
And she will
He
fuck
turned
your
back
shit
to
up.
address the
No, she
uniformed
won't, but
troops.
you have dogs, she
Sekar
will.
here says that this Freeman
Well,
device
I have
will
to.
bring a worm. We'll plant one along with enough explosives to take care of the beast when it comes. Sekar, we will leave you behind to rig the explosives and trigger the thumper. You can run across the sands and make it to safety with us before a worm can come, right?
I have to clean them
Rabban
up.
gave him a delicious little grin.
She gets very,
Sekar
very,
stammered.
very, 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 very,
Even if you can't make it, the worm will
very,
probably go for the thumper first. The explosives will get the beast before you become its next target. You take comfort in that, my lord, Sekar said.
Why are you smiling?
Intrigued by the Freeman device, Hines considered obtaining
well,
one for himself.
that's good.
He wished he could watch this
Well,
desert
you have a
native
good
up
night.
close to witness how he ran across the sands, how he eluded pursuit from the vibration-sensitive old man of the desert. But the planetologist knew enough to remain quiet and avoid Rabban's notice, hoping that the hot-blooded young Harkonnen wouldn't volunteer him to assist Sekar. Inside the personnel compartment at the back of the craft, the Bator, a commander of a small troop, and his underlings looked through the weapons stockpile, removing laser guns for themselves. They rigged explosives to the stake-like mechanism that Sekar had brought along, a thumper. With curious eyes, Hines could see that it was just a spring-wound clockwork device that would thunk out a loud, rhythmic vibration. When plunged into the sand, the thumper would send reverberations deep below.